It was too good to be true. We thought the Nissan was fixed, but not so much. We actually got quite a bit done yesterday. So Ryan got the battery tied down and secured. Ryan got the rear brakes reassembled. One of the calipers was seized. And then John and I got the brakes bled, wheels back on, and took it for a test drive. And everything was going well until it wasn't. Eventually it just died. We don't know exactly what happened. John and I spent about 2 hours trying to diagnose the problem. We think we got it narrowed down to being the fuel pump. We're pretty sure. We didn't really have tools, so it's hard to say. Today, I am going to replace it. Hopefully that's all it is. If that's it, then it's easy and we're back on the road. So you can see that John and I were screwing around with this last night. We know power is making it to here, and we are fairly positive that we have good continuity through this wiring harness. So that puts us down underneath the cap and probably having a bad fuel pump. So we're gonna take it out and see what's up. I just checked the fuel pump, pulled it out, put 12 volts to it. It works great. I think the problem we were having yesterday is that everything is insulated, so we couldn't get to the actual circuit to the direct pump to see if it works, but it seems like it works fine. I just replaced a fuse that we thought wasn't important, but it could very well be it. It was one of the big square fuses, so we didn't have any. I had to go buy one. We're gonna just pull the Lexus up to it and see if that's it. Hopefully it's just that fuse, and then the car's good to go. All right, we're just gonna give that a couple minutes to try to give it some juice, and then we'll see what happens. No difference. Now I'm a little bit confused, and I think maybe it's the relay. So what I'm gonna do is put 12 volts directly from the battery to the pump to see if it works. Based on a bunch of research on Nissan forums, which we all know how good those are, these are the two wires I need right here, the two that are isolated. We're gonna try that and see what happens. All right, next step. We're gonna see if the relay's bad. So we're gonna go hook it up to the battery and see if it will actuate. All right, there's some real Nissan fuckery going on here. This is the relay for the fuel pump, and this 10 amp fuse is the fuse for the fuel pump. We have 10 volts on the battery, because the battery's dead right now, and every one of these fuses has 10 volts, except the fuse for the fuel pump. It has 4 volts. Has it here, has it there, has it at the back of the car. So the current working theory is something is wrong in the bottom of that fuse box. There's corrosion or dirt or crap or who knows what, but something is acting like a resistor and stopping the full voltage from getting to that fuse. This was John's idea. It's genius. I'm going to wire up test leads for all 4 pins of the relay to get it out of that box. I'm going to give it the 10 volts from somewhere else, and then we're going to see if that solves the problem. And if that's true, then we know there's just something wrong in the fuse box, and I don't know, we'll probably just wire it to a different fuse. So take it apart, look and see if it's something obvious, and if not, then give it fused power from somewhere else and hope that works. So, man, I really hope this is it. We're getting pretty deep into the electrics now, so I really hope it's just something simple like this. But all right, so I've got my test leads wired up. I have each of the pins for the relay wired to a lead. All of them plugged into the correct spots except for the power. Okay, so in theory, when I turn the key, we should hear the fuel pump turn on. No, that wasn't it, which means it's probably a problem with the signal wire from the ECU, and God only knows what would cause that. Okay, quick synopsis. It's all bad. I found potentially what might be the problem. With the relay completely hooked up, it wasn't clicking on. At first I thought, well, that must be because it isn't getting a signal. There's not power going to the relay to click it on. Turns out there is power going to the relay to click it on, but the ground is not contiguous to the body. So when you plug that in, nothing happens, but when you ground it out to something else, the relay clicks on and I can hear the fuel pump running in the back. Grounding problem. Well, who knows where the hell that could be. But Ryan's dad did notice that this part of the wiring harness here had gotten sucked up underneath the pulley. Got a little chewed up. Maybe that's our problem. Maybe it just split a wire. Maybe it's putting 12 volts on a wire it shouldn't be. Who knows? But I have to go back to Medford for work in the morning. I need to pack up, get out of here. I'm gonna come back tomorrow, hopefully having slept more than 4 hours. We will see if I can't figure it out. I guess I'm gonna start with those wires over there. I guess if that doesn't do it, then just hardwire a relay in to give the fuel pump power and then see what else is the problem. I might end up just taking apart the fuse box and redoing all the wiring in the fuse box. More fun to come. God, Nissan sucks. I'm gonna dig into this wiring harness, see if I can't fix this. There's 4 wires that are chewed all the way through. I've got the tools of my trade. We're gonna see what we can do. And hopefully this solves the problem. So we'll see. Okay, the harness is back together. I ended up replacing 2 strands and just rewrapping the rest. We have the right voltage to that relay now, but I don't think it's clicking on yet. Let's see if we can hear anything here. Nope. We don't have enough juice. All right, we've got the angry pixies from the Lexus powering the Nissan. Let's see if that did it. For whatever reason, this is still not getting a ground. So what I've done is just wired this up and taped the ground to what I know is a good ground. So now, let's see if that kicks the fuel pump on. Sure enough, it does. But I think that second relay is also not grounded, which means it still won't start because it's not getting a spark. But let's just see, I guess. All right. We gotta take that box apart, I guess. It's gonna be real fun. From the beginning, we have been trying to figure out why the EGI system and the fuel pump relays were not triggering when the ignition was on. What we figured out is that they both have constant power from the fuse panel and are ground switched by the ECU. We jumpered them just to double check that the circuits themselves were working. So the power circuits for both are working. What we don't know yet is if the injectors are for sure pulsing. I just didn't have enough hands to check that yesterday, so we're going to check that today. We don't know if the crank position sensor is working correctly, so we're going to check that today as well. And we're not 100% positive that the ECU is doing everything it's supposed to. We have the pinouts for the ECU, and we checked quite a bit of it, but we weren't able to trace everything down. One of the other problems is that this is an automatic transmission ECU in a manual transmission car. So we're not 100% positive what that means. There's conflicting information. Sometimes it goes one way, sometimes it goes another way. So we're trying to rely on our brains and a multimeter to figure it out. The plan for today is check the injectors, check the crank position sensor, double check the grounds and power for the ECU, and make sure that's all working correctly. We do have one pin on the ECU that is not getting switched power. So we don't know exactly what the reason for that is, but we think that's the cause of our problems. We think, and again, we're not 100% positive, the circuit schematic is pretty hard to read, there's a lot going on, and we're using a different ECU than came with the car. But we think that that circuit that isn't getting power is the circuit that provides power to tell those 2 relays for the fuel pump and the ignition to do their thing. We checked the fuse that we thought it would be. That fuse was fine. There's a relay somewhere. We're going to try to narrow that down as well and see if we can't fix it. And when all of that fails, John is on his way with another ECU. We have a few things to try today, a couple hours to do it. And then if we get to the end of that list and we still don't know, well, let's just not. We'll go there if we need to go there. We did a lot of things yesterday. John and I have now traced the entire ignition system harness. Everything. From end to end. And when I say end to end, I mean component to component inside the ECU. And they still make no sense. We began this whole escapade by taking it for a test drive, and the fuel pump stopped working.
Just did a Nissan and died.
Day 2, we discovered it was not the fuel pump. The fuel pump was fine. And so then it became a wiring thing. And we chased it to the fuse box. Day 3, we found out it was not the fuse box. And so then we chased it to the engine and then to the ECU. Day 4, we swapped a new ECU in because we found out this original ECU had blown itself up. And the reason for that was those wires, we think, that ate themselves on the front of the engine, sent power to the wrong place, ECU's dead. So then we swap in ECU number the second, plug it in, and the car fires right up on 3 out of 4 cylinders. So then John and I proceed to spend
A whole day.
a whole day tracing
Everything.
literally everything.
That we didn't touch the day before.
We swapped every physical component. Come to find out, ECU number 2 was also bad.
It was pulsing cylinders 1, 2, and 4 on the injectors, but would not pulse cylinder 3.
Yeah.
Which then, of course, made us think the wiring was bad. So
Right.
then we chased wiring from that injector all the way through the harness to the ECU for a couple hours.
Yep.
Moved and switched, did everything. Everything you're thinking right now, we did.
We did it. We did it
Sometimes twice, just to make sure we weren't going crazy. To the point where we actually opened up the ECU, and I got my meter out, and I could compare injectors 1, 2, and 4 to 3, and they weren't. 3 was the odd man out.
Yeah. ECU number 2, also bad. That brings us to today.
ECU number 3.
Sam, behind the camera, went to Albany and picked up the only 240SX ECU for sale in Oregon. Plugged it in, and the car turned on and ran great, except that it didn't. He called me and said it worked.
All 4 injectors pulsed.
Yeah.
I started it for half a second, and she went vroom, and then she died, and I was like, okay, well, it's been sitting, pumped it full of fuel.
Yeah.
No big deal. Then I called.
Yeah.
It was a little premature. A lot of things were wrong. The tach stopped working. The engine stumbled a lot, like it was way off on timing, and then come to find out, this is a single cam KA ECU.
So it's 9:15. I just got back from Portland, picking up Ryan's stolen MR2. We are going to take this original ECU, steal components off of the second ECU, and try to hybrid them together with a combination of the correct soldering techniques and jumper wires, and see if we can't make it work. What's probably going to happen is we ruin both of these, and then rewire the car for that ECU.
That's not happening. I will buy one from Arizona and have it shipped here before I rewire the shockingly unmolested arms.
Here we go.
Yeah, let's just give it a shot and see what
Want me
happens.
to just like put my flashlight down on it so you can see?
That wouldn't be terrible. No, the component's free-ish.
I should have brought my glasses.
The component's not free. That didn't work even a little bit.
It's not happy about it, but it's moving. Right up until the solder re-solidified.
All right, that side. We're gonna walk her out. Oh, grab a pliers.
Yep. You want the biggest pliers I can
just use
find,
these.
or?
Yes! Are we not professionals?
That was great, and this is the board that actually matters, so.
Well, it finally works. We've only been driving for a few minutes, so who knows what's going to happen. We've got about a 30-minute drive ahead of us, but this is the first time we've ever driven it with any load. We kind of drove it around the parking lot a little bit, but this is the first real test, and it's working. Man, this is great. I know I've said a lot of really nasty things about it recently, but I don't take any of them back. But it works now, so it deserves a little bit of my gratitude.